Welcome to Reparenting Daily, your free daily guide for inner child healing and repairing the relationship with yourself. This podcast helps you establish a consistent reparenting routine and is divided into 3 sections. The first is the daily reading, the second is a discussion of the reading, followed by suggested journal prompts, and the last section is peaceful binaural beats meditation for closing. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from whenever and wherever you're joining us. I'm so glad that you could join us on this journey of self-expansion. If this is your first time here, welcome. As a celebration of passing episode 700, I've opened a free membership tier for the Patreon community so you can access additional resources and join the weekly Zoom calls for free. I know there's a lot going on in the world right now and that so many people are really struggling. My hope here is to still encourage others to continue the work on reparenting and to offer a free community where people can come together and do that. I'd also like to thank all of you who've been along on the journey so far. Just as a reminder, this is a free podcast, but you can support the project by purchasing the Reparenting Daily Journal, where you can follow us along all year. This 333-page journal gives you extra insight and resources for each week, and also provides space for you to keep your notes. Another way to support the podcast is to purchase the Fairy Tales for Reparenting series, volumes 1 through 3. This collection organizes famous and obscure fairy tales from around the world into the 3 phases of the hero's journey. While you might think that fairy tales are for kids, I'd like to challenge you. These stories contain profound truths and lessons carried down over millennia that we can use in our reparenting journey. It's a fun way to reconnect with your inner child. Each volume comprises 10 fairy tales. They include an analysis section to help you dive deeper into the message, as well as journal prompts and space to reflect on the story's meaning in your life. Lastly, you can also support the project by taking a paid Patreon subscription, by purchasing the books on the website, or by donating via Buy Me a Coffee. You can find all this information on the Support Us section of the website. So now, with these announcements out of the way, let's dive into today's practice. Today, we're going to be listening to a portion of a lecture entitled, How Can I Love Myself? By Eckhart Tolle. As always, you can find the link in the show notes to listen to the video in its entirety. It's from his main website, so there are plenty of other videos he has. If you haven't heard of Eckhart Tolle before, I highly suggest that you check him out. He has a lot to offer in terms of his perspectives that contribute to this process of reparenting and learning to come back to yourself, to be present with yourself, to be present with the world and with others as well. So this is the value of the works of Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. Perhaps you've heard of this book before. It's quite popular in this field of self-improvement, self-development, and spirituality. And today, by the way, we're in June still, and the theme for this month is Cultivating Self-Worth and Self-Love. We're now in week 3, which is June 15th until the 21st. And the theme for this week is Practicing Self-Love, which is why I've selected this video, How Can I Love Myself? I'm recording this video on Monday, so a little bit later than normal. And I've had quite a busy weekend, so there's a lot been going on. I've been having a lot of, not issues, but situations with my health that has kind of slowed me down a bit. So that's the reason why this is coming is a little bit late, still on the same day, but yeah, you get it. You guys get the point. It's so important that we figure out a way to improve our capacity for self-love. It's important that we improve our understanding of what self-love is, because when you're not parented effectively, when you grow up with parents who are abusive or chaotic or ill in some way, or whatever the kind of dysfunction it is, right? Because there can be so many types of dysfunctional parents that cause you issues as an adult based on the programming that they gave you and their lack of willingness to be honest and direct and open with you, right? And so today I've selected this talk because it's important that we come back to the foundations of does it mean to love yourself? How do you love yourself? How do you learn to become present when your subconscious mind has been populated with the remnants of the trauma that you've experienced? How do you begin to influence your subconscious mind so that you can improve your ability to love yourself, to respect yourself, to build your self-esteem and your self-worth, to become grounded in who you are so that you can release fear and anxiety and stress and doubt? These are the most important things you can do on your journey to reparenting, because as I said before, actually the most important experience in this process of reparenting, the most important emotion that you should be aiming towards is joy. Joy is an indication that you have discovered your true self. Whenever you see something or experience something or observe something, such as a piece of art or a type of music or a type of food, when you have a positive reaction that comes from within your body, that is your sign. That is the universe communicating to you who you are when you have a positive reaction. Now, a lot of us, because of childhood abuse, abandonment, and neglect, have become distanced from our bodies. That means that we're not able to effectively discern when a hobby, for example, is responding to us emotionally or is identifying within us that this is in alignment with who we are. For example, when I was, it's a bit of a personal story, which I don't normally do, but I will share it as an example. When I was a child, one of the positive things that my mother did do was to put me in many, many, many different activities and programs that I expressed interest in. And so that was one thing that was really, really good about my childhood. I think I even did I did more than most other people and most of the kids, especially children who grew up in the circumstances like I did, or who were born into the circumstances as I were. And so, for example, for me, that means I did gymnastics, I did karate, I did theater, I did the symphony and multiple symphonies in my city, in the high school and the youth city symphony. I did basketball, soccer, swimming, golf, all of these different things, right? Um, but I realized, when I was a child, I was always constantly changing, like go from gymnastics to karate, karate to theater, theater to symphony, symphony to golf, golf to swimming, swimming to, always changing, 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 changing. And I think because I grew up, with a single mother who was also kind of stressed, panicked, so she was not really settled in her body. And so I was not settled in my body because I was patterning or my nervous system was patterned from hers, right? And so even though I was exposed to all those things, which is a really good thing and something I'm so, so grateful for because, in terms of, parents wanting to change and do better than how they were raised, that's one thing that she did succeed in because her parents did not give her those same opportunities. So even though the emotional support and development was not there, and so many other things went wrong, it's like she did try to make some step. And so I try to remember that when I have a lot of that rage coming up, I try to come back to myself to remember the good things because, there were some things that really impacted my ability to be who I am. Also, the study abroad programs I did in high school, also in college. The one in high school, I had help from my parents, or my mother, and my community. But the one in high school, in college rather, I started to do on my own. And those are things that really impacted my outlook on life. They gave me the drive to move abroad, to learn different languages. I love languages. It's something that's naturally part of who I am. And I'm grateful for that because it did give me some understandings of who I am, what I enjoy, how I can see myself, my ability to do different things, right? So there's a lot of value that came from that. But I was so dysregulated that I was not able to correctly identify which of those activities were really responding and resonating with me at the highest degree, if that makes sense. And so I was not able to truly settle on one and then to consistently build that skill. I also didn't have the support or direction or reflection to do that mirroring. And so for that reason, I kind of stayed in this limbo state where now I have multiple hobbies. I've always had multiple hobbies. I'm gifted. I have a high HQ. And so that's something that is normal for people who have a high IQ. You have many interests, things you want to learn. And so it's also part of a reflection of who I am. And now I've done, some work to kind of narrow those down in terms of my interests and hobbies, and then to find the interconnection between all of these hobbies so that they're actually supporting and building each other as opposed to just being, putting effort to random things. So I've created a way where I'm settled in my hobbies and my expression of myself and my interests. And that's something that I hope you can do as well if you are someone who has multiple interests, multi-potentialite. It's not something that's bad, even though society, praises people who become quote unquote experts. But the most of the value really comes from being able to see how different areas cross over into each other. This is a reason that you can love yourself. Like maybe you're not an expert, but you can see the connections between different fields and what is it? Different. You can see the connection between different fields or different thoughts or philosophies, right? Or, you can create or you can take one, for example, perspective that came from ethics and apply it to a different area, such as reparenting, or, So this kind of cognitive flexibility is one of the reasons that I do love myself, because I realize it's a gift that not many people do have. And so I've been rambling quite a bit now. So let's go ahead and listen to Eckhart Tolle speak about how can I love myself.
If you want to learn about not having a mental self-image, watch your dog or your cat. They don't have an opinion about who they are. They just are who they are. How can I love myself? What is this? I don't remember ever saying that you should love yourself. So is it bad to love yourself? No, of course not. Is it better than to hate yourself? Yes, of course. Now, let's start with, many people are uncomfortable with themselves. They dislike who they are. Perhaps they dislike their body, how they look. Perhaps they dislike who they are as a person, don't feel they are good enough, or are self-critical a lot. Many people live with a negative self-image, which of course all consists of certain types of mind activity. And that's not pleasant. And it may be for some of those people, once they realize that they live with a mind pattern that continually criticizes them and says negative things about them, they begin to realize that it's a mind pattern. This self-hatred is a mind pattern, and that it's harmful, it's not pleasant, and they can go beyond it and begin to replace it with more positive thoughts about themselves. And having positive thoughts about yourself, that kind of thing would perhaps usually be called beginning to love yourself, to feel good about yourself. But it's not easy, that shift from feeling bad about yourself to feeling good about yourself. Sometimes it requires a lot of convincing. I would regard loving yourself as perhaps an intermediate stage in one's awakening. But the essence of the awakened consciousness is that you go beyond having a particular idea in your mind that represents yourself, as a mental self-image that you relate to. Because basically it's ego, a mental self-image of who you think, this is what I am, this is who I am. If you want to learn about not having a mental self-image, watch your dog or your cat. They don't have an opinion about who they are. They just are who they are. So that removes an enormous amount of problems from their lives. Of course, they don't have the mind activity that creates a self-image in their head. They are pre-mind, and therefore their life is far less problematic than human life. You can see how wonderful it is not to have a self-image. You can look at an ugly dog or an ugly cat. They don't have a problem with that. Even an overweight dog or cat, they're okay. No self-image. Or a dog that has lost its sexual powers. It doesn't become part of the dog's self-image. The dog says, "Oh my God, I can't father puppies anymore. I've lost my male power. How dreadful!" It's not part of it. The dog doesn't have a self-image. If there's no sexual desire, there's no sexual desire. There's no thinking around that. Nothing to do with me. There's no problem. Or the cat suddenly can't jump up this fence anymore. It's getting too old. The cat doesn't say, "Oh, I've become useless now. What's the point in carrying?" It just is. It doesn't detract from the self-image of the cat because it doesn't have a self-image. So how wonderful to live without an image of who you are, because you are the presence. You're not the form that's a temporary expression of you, but you are the underlying presence. And when you feel yourself as the underlying presence, you don't need to live through some mental image of who you are. And that's where you go beyond hating yourself, but you also go beyond loving yourself. It's just being yourself. It's similar to the dog, but it's not a regressive step. It's a step forward for humans. You go beyond the mind-made sense of self. You don't fall back to the pre-mind-made sense of self. You don't need to live through a self-image of who you are. The more presence that comes into your life, the more you feel yourself to be the presence, not some mental construct.
Hello, welcome back. I hope you guys enjoyed this lecture. As always, we only listen to a portion, so please do click on the link in the show notes to listen to it in its entirety. Your self-image. How does that relate to your self-love? You see, Eckhart Tolle, in this short lecture that we've listened to, he explains that our self-image, when falsely composed, causes us issues with our emotions, our ability to connect with others and the world, and even ourselves. And so he talks a lot about, in this video, releasing your self-image or reestablishing your self-image. I don't know that it's best to completely eliminate your self-image, but you also don't want to go too far in the direction of ego either, because that will cause more pain down the line, because that's not really the true way that I'm careful to say that we should live, but there are certain universal principles, that dictate the laws of the universe, and egotism is actually against these natural laws. Like, there's a consequence. If you're familiar with the reading that we did in the Red Book, I can't remember offhand the chapter. I think it was in the second half of this book. And one of the readings that I did from the live sessions, Carl Jung says that the cost of using magic, which is manipulation with the intent to control other people. So like a dark magic, right? Because there are two types of magic, dark and light magic. And magic is really just how we influence the subconscious mind, because the subconscious minds are then what create our reality, right? And so magic is the influencing of the subconscious mind of yourself or others. And for that reason, it can be dark magic used to destroy and to steal, or it can be light magic, which is to love and to build and empower, right? And so when we're thinking about loving ourselves, working on our self-image, the cost of using that dark magic is the loss of peace in your soul. He says that if you agree to, quote unquote, sell your soul to the devil so you can gain power by implementing and living from the left-hand path, dark magic, the price of that is that you lose any semblance of peace in your soul, right? There's something very important to remember whenever you are tempted by this society, to follow the darker path, to have less respect, right, for others, to prioritize yourself, egoism, narcissism, these kind of embracing of this society and what the society has decided to value. That's also a challenge that you have to face when you're working on your self-love, because society has, in a way, defined how to express self-love. And you need to be aware when you're in the process of reparenting that you haven't had the experience, the repetitions, the support, the mirroring or validation to necessarily live from this combative or aggressive way of being. Where in this society, if you're listening in the West, it's more about aggression, possession of other people. That's why so many relationships are narcissistic, abusive, exploitative. It's a reflection of what our society has told us is the point of life. Aggression, selfishness, greed. Greed is good. If you think about that movie from I think it's 80s, right? Wall Street. This is the culture that's permeated for the past 30 years. What are we in now? In 2026, right? So, at least 30 years since I've been alive, since the 90s. And, really this started in 1970, I think it was a 74 or 76, the Bretton Woods, where they removed the gold standard, when Richard Nixon removed the gold standard and created the, dependence on the U.S. dollar, the petrodollar, and, gold or currency, U.S. currency is no longer backed by gold, but it just becomes something that you build on faith. The value of the dollar is just based on the faith and trust in the nation and the central banks. Why am I talking about this? Because it also reflects the idea and the issues that we struggle with self-love. Because our culture has programmed us to display that we love ourselves by behaving in certain ways with others. That is a reliance on external validation, which was our theme last week. We need to learn to come back to ourselves, to learn and accept that true presence is how we express love to ourselves. Removing the tension of the doubt, the fear, the anxiety, erasing the internalization of others' projections of who we are, and returning to ourselves. This is how you express love to yourself, by returning to yourself in the present moment. And it's once you're able to do that, to calm your nervous system, to return to your body, you'll then be able to identify those signals in your body. Those signals that give you a positive indication that something is aligned with your identity. That could be a hobby, a way of behaving, a type of food or music, a type of person or relationship or connection. It can be so many things, but this is how you know and learn who you are. And once you know who you are, it's quite easy to love yourself. But if you don't, and you're stuck in this matrix of external reality, a corrupted reality at that, you're going to struggle with it. So it's so important to gain clarity, groundedness, and return to your body in order to figure out who you are. And self-love flows naturally once you've reached that point. And so as we consider the reflection questions today, number 1, what are the most influential foundations of your self-image? Where did they come from? When did you grab hold of them? And how have you decided their significance in your life? Number 2, what is one area where you struggle to demonstrate self-love? And what's the reason for that? Is it the lack of awareness of self, or is it projections from other people, or perhaps yourself, also stemming from a lack of understanding? And number 3, in which ways can you act now to build your self-love? What does your inner child most need at this moment? Validation, support, acknowledgement, mirroring, or other things? What is the most important thing, only choose one, that you can focus on giving yourself this week and for the rest of the month? Well, that's it for today. As always, thanks for being here. Take care of yourself, and please do be well. Welcome back. Now, this is the third and final section of the daily podcast. This is your silent meditation. Please find a place where you can be comfortable and undisturbed, where you can relax and spend some time with yourself for the next 10 minutes. You can choose to be sitting, standing, lying down, or in whatever position makes you most comfortable today. Just take some time to listen to yourself. Next, be sure that you're taking time to be with your breath and to connect more fully with your body. Don't be disturbed or overwhelmed by your thoughts. Simply allow them to pass. Just observe them. Do not engage with your thoughts. Only be mindful of them passing, as if they are leaves drifting down top of a river. Use this time to connect with yourself, whatever time of day you are listening to this. Namaste.